So this is notes over your solving with fractions, and I'm going to try a different format to get a little better sound. I will be using a mouse, so the writing may look a little bit sloppy, but that shouldn't be that big of a deal. So to solve these equations, I'm going to do the I do portion. This is from the notes that we do in class, and then I'll talk about the we do if I have time, but right now I'm just going to do the I do problems. So you always look at the equation right away while you're thinking about it. You go ahead and make your dividing line. And this right here, if I just cover up the fraction, it's really like a number 2h minus 6. What would I do? I would add 6 and I would divide by 2. The only difference is there's a fraction here. So I still follow the same step. Don't change everything because there's a fraction. So I have 3 halves h equals 10. So if I were to solve this problem and it said didn't have a fraction, I would divide by this number, whatever that is. And I can still do that. You can still divide both sides by 3 halves if you want. And that cancels out. The trick is over here, you know that dividing by 3 halves, you divide by a fraction is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So some people go ahead and do that right from the start. And so over here, they just multiply by the 3 halves right away. It's really up to you, whatever. If you learned a little bit different method, that's fine. So if I multiply by 2/3, now 2/3 times 3 halves is 1. And over here I have 10 over 1 times 2/3, which is 20 over 3. If you want to write that as a mixed number, 3 goes in 26 times. 6 times 3 is 18. There's a remainder of 2. Get used to the form of that fraction. So you don't need to go change it into a decimal. Okay, so same thing over here. If you didn't look at this number, what would you do with whatever's underneath there? You would subtract it. Do the same thing. It's a fourth. You can subtract it. Okay, another situation is when you have a fraction out in front of the number or a quantity. You can do this just like you do anything else. You can distribute and kind of deal with it. The only reason I would do that is to see if 3 goes into both of these, then it'll simplify nicely. So yeah, 1/3 of 6. 6 divided by 3 parts is 2. And 1/3 of 9 is 3. So it changes into a problem that we already know how to do, which is just a 2-step algebra equation, add 3, divide by 2. The other thing you could do, and I'm giving you a couple different methods because not everybody learns the same way. The other thing you could do is to just get rid of the fraction right away. Be careful though. You only need to multiply each side by 3 one time. Multiply this by 3. 3 times 1/3 leaves you with 6k minus 9. Don't take 3 and multiply times everything inside. And multiply over here and you get that value. Again, it sort of comes back to what do you want to get rid of? So like if I want to distribute this, I can. If I want to get rid of it, I can multiply by 4/3. Or sometimes people like to multiply by 4 first and then divide by 3 second. It doesn't matter as long as you understand when you multiply this side by 4 and this side by 4, that 4 cancels out with that, and we still have a 3 here. The 4 did not go inside the parentheses. Okay, so this is one where there's a fraction and there's a quantity over a fraction. So this is all kind of one factor. You have to treat it like that. You can't split these things up and do different processes for each one. So this is one I think it's good to get rid of the 6 right away. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 6, parentheses around it. So I have negative x minus 3 equals 30 minus 12x. Again, this is why you do the distributive property, you practice it. It's going to make other things easier. Now it's an equation. I've changed it to an equation that you know how to solve. When I was helping people with some of these fraction problems, it said if you covered this up and said, how do you get rid of that 5? You'd say multiply by 5. And I was like, oh, multiply by 5. And then when I put that there, you're like, I don't know what to do now. It's the same rule. Treat it the same way. Okay, now we have some fractions that are in the actual problem, like dealing with fractions, both the process and the algebra. This is about as fun as it gets. If I see two fractions that have denominators that are common, I'm probably just going to get rid of the fraction by multiplying everything by a common denominator. So if I multiply 3, I get 3x. 3 times 1/3 is 3/3, which is just 1. 3 times 2/3 is 6/3, which is 2. 3 times 5 is 15. Notice, again, making sure I multiply everything on both sides by 3. Over here, your common denominator is probably going to be a 5. If you multiply everything by 5, that'll get rid of it. And the last one on here is just decimals, which are fractions in a different form. Treat this the same way. Get your variables together. Just means at the end you're going to have a little bit of arithmetic to do. And most of the time with decimals, you'll have a calculator to finish the problem off. But for right now, it's not terrible to practice some of those fundamental skills. That's all, folks.